Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of LFA Shop. This week we're going to be putting a fuel cell in the Ke25. Alright, fuel cell time. So I could use the stock tank, but I have a large rust hole if I do that. So I'm thinking what I want to do is also move the weight down. So I'm going to cut out the wheel well and then put the fuel cell in there instead. That'll move the weight from up the back here to down the bottom. So let's cut that wheel well out. Okay, so the fuel cell's going to go in here obviously. So this thing needs to go. The fuel cell I've ordered, it is a Aeroflow 57 litre. So this fuel cell is 46 centimeters deep, so front to back, 51 centimeters wide, so side to side, and 26 centimeters tall, so from bottom to top. So that's a pretty easy bunch of measurements. So I'm going to mark out this and see how close we are with the current wheel well situation. So quickly throwing a tape measure over this wheel well, it is about 50 centimeters wide, 57 centimeters wide. It's about 58 or 9 front to back, and it's only about 20 centimeters deep, not even, maybe 17 centimeters deep. So I don't want to go a heap lower than this. I will have a look under the car and see where it can go to. I don't want to go too low obviously, because if I go through a spoon drain or something and the fuel tank hits the floor, rips a hole in it, fuel goes everywhere and everybody dies. Okay, so I've got some slightly better measuring sticks here. The bottom of the wheel well is about 17 centimeters. So that's probably where I'm going to put the bottom of the fuel tank. So that means I'm going to have a framework underneath it, say about 30 mil, 25 to 30 mil. So that'll put me about 200 from the top of this floor to the bottom of the fuel cell. And if I go under the back here, you can see that's about an inch lower than the wheel well, and we should be not too far from the sill heights and all that sort of stuff. And obviously the cage being the lowest part, that'll be quite strong. And if I do happen to hit the floor with it, it's not going to rip the tank open. So I'm going to keep that 200 mil measurement in mind from the top of this floor here to the bottom of the cage, fuel tank, everything, absolute bottom is 200. So what I'm going to do now is just trim around here, get the bulk of this out of the way and see what we've got to work with. Okay, so I've marked and measured a million times, and I've marked out a 55 centimeter square hole. So the fuel cell, the maximum measurement is 51. So I'm leaving myself 20 mil either side for the cage that I want to build. It'll probably end up being a 25 mil cage, so I'll need 50 mil, but I'd rather sneak up on it and take another 5 mil later, or another 10 mil later, rather than cut too much out now. So you can see the corner here. So one corner here, one corner up the back there, one over here, getting rid of the original fuel tank hole, which I would want it to do, and then one here as well. So what this will do is bring the tank as far forwards as I can without it getting in the way of the diff. It'll bring it further forwards from the back so that I can retain the structure back here, because there is two little chassis rail leg things here. So I'd like to try and box that back in a little bit if I can. And then also gets me further away from the back. So when I do go through a spoon drain, obviously if I have the lower part of the car towards the wheels, it'll be less likely to hit than if I have 10 meters overhang, or in this case like 100 mil, but for sake of reference. So I'm going to cut these corners out, and then I don't know what else I can do really today because I haven't got the fuel cell, but I'm going to cut the corners out and sort of come up with a bit of a plan for how I'm going to box everything back in. Okay, I decided to do a little bit more before the fuel cell gets here. So what I've done is I've cut the corners of these rails out. Well, that one mainly. This one I haven't really touched yet. And I've got this piece of 25 by 50 3mm wall. Actually, it could be 5mm wall. Slide that in there. And then that sits in a nice firm spot. So I'm going to weld this in once I get the tank and everything. And then fill up all the gaps with sheet metal So weld this to the rails, make sure everything's nice and solid, and then weld in a plate to box in the chassis rails again. And then the new RHS will go that way obviously, and I'll weld that to the end of the rails as well. So they should end up a lot stronger than they were originally, and I end up with a nice place to mount my fuel cell. So I'm going to go off of here and come all the way out flat, just sheet metal, out to the end of this, probably roll it down, end up with a nice panel to start with, and then go from here forwards for the fuel cell. Yeah. 57 litre fuel cell for the Corolla is here. I've also ordered some seats, which we'll see in like 6 to 8 weeks. And I got a spare gasket because that comes with the tank. So I haven't actually ripped this open yet. I just opened it up to pull the gasket out. So I'm going to open this up, see what it looks like, and we'll go from there. Alright, so it looks pretty nice. So let's check the measurements and make sure we've got enough room. So it's 46 centimeters deep, which is what we wanted. It is 51 wide, which is what it said. And then this is the part I was worried about. So the tank without the sump is 26, which is what it says on the website. But the tank with the sump section is 31. So being that it's 31 from the bottom of the sump to the top of the tank, we're going to be reasonably far into the boot, which I didn't really want to do, but that's just how it's going to be. So this sump can be the lowest point at the 20 centimeters I said. So probably be similar level with the cage that I'm going to make. Just make sure that nothing can bottom out on the ground, because that'd be a really bad time. Alright, so a few things that make this tank pretty cool is it's got internal baffles, which I will take this plate off in the future and show you. It's got a built-in fuel sender, which I need. It's got the breather, and well, I suppose you can use one for a breather and one for a return. So pretty good little tank. It's got 2 feeds if you wanted to use them. I'll only be using one, but it's pretty solid thing and it's pretty good quality. So the first thing I want to do is remake this fuel tank filler. So I want to plumb into the original fuel tank filler on the car, because I don't want to open the boot and fill in through here and get fuel everywhere. I want to just be OEM and going through the side. So I'm going to remake that, and that's why I'm glad I've got another gasket, so I can just copy that onto some steel, cut it out, and then when I'm ready I can just take this off and swap it over. So I'm going to try and start working towards that now, and also measure up some mounts and start cutting some stuff. Alright, so not too long, got myself a plate that matches the gasket nicely. So making round things sucks, so it's a little bit not quite round, but it's pretty close. So now I need to wait for some more bits to join onto this. I've done my best to get parts as quick as I can, but it's proving a bit difficult at the moment. So I'm just going to leave this for now and start working on the mounts for these tabs here. So I've done a little bit of cutting and I've got a few bars starting to happen. These are massive overkill, but they are the right height to stop this from getting smashed first. So I just had to think about it, and the wheel well never hits anything, so I don't think this will hit anything, but I really don't want to take any chances with track stuff and, you know, maybe getting airborne or whatever this may go through. 25 by 50 through here and box it in really well, so it should be nice and strong. Got a bit of a cutting list for stuff to pick up tomorrow. And that's about all I can do at the moment. I haven't got enough metal to make the little legs. So from this point they're going to be 200, but there's also that 50mm that's already in the car. So I only have to make 100mm legs, but I want to overlap them on this piece anyway. So 4 at 150, and then the framework that's already in the car. So I'm probably going to have to leave it there for today and pick up when I've got a bit more steel. So fuel cell time. Got some steel so I can continue making the hanger. And also got some aluminium, which is 2mm 1200 by 2400. This is for door cards and the parcel shelf and like the seat back and the rear door cards. And maybe some other stuff if I've got some left over. It worked out I should have a fair bit, but whether it's usable sizes or not is a different question. So I got heaps of 25 by 50 2mm also. That's steel obviously, so that'll be enough to do the rest of the tank and probably brace off and finish off this back end. So I quickly knocked up some 150s. So these are going to be the very bottom obviously, 150 tall plus the 50mm that I'm going to weld into the chassis rails. So that'll be my 200 overall. Obviously the tank's going to sit a fair bit higher, but it'll be all right. So I've just tacked these in place as you can see. The plan is to fully weld all the way around, obviously, and then you're going to have a small curve there which the tank feet will sit on. So these guys will probably interfere with those welds, but you've got to remember as well, I'm going to have a small piece of rubber in here to lift it up a bit and isolate it a little bit to stop it from rubbing and cracking and stuff. So I'm going to run rubber across the 3 main bars, and then underneath the washers on the bolts and underneath the washers on the nuts as well. Just try and get everything nice and isolated so it doesn't crack, because apparently that's a thing with the, probably more so the cheaper fuel cells, but these crack and then you end up with a hole in your fuel tank. So I'm trying to avoid that, obviously. And then I also gave this a test fit yesterday. First time, fits perfect. So the next step with this is to drill a 2-inch hole in the middle and then put a small piece of pipe on it. And then because these are just bolts at the moment, but the nut on the backside isn't captive, so I want to make one of these in steel and then cut it in half, so it's 2 half circles. Weld all the bolts through the back of those and then feed these in here with a little bit of sealant or something on the back and push them through the holes so that the bolts are captive. Make my life a whole lot easier when I'm assembling it. So that'll be the next plan for when I tackle that, but I'm still waiting on the exhaust bends to make the fuel filler neck. So I'll just keep concentrating on this and see how far we can get. So the next bit would be to put this in the car, which is going to be a bit awkward. And then these guys, which are the same length as the tank, go in here and weld to that main bar that I had in the chassis rails, and then whatever I'm going to do at the other end, which I haven't worked out yet. I should probably work out what I'm doing at that end before I go any further. So I bought some tyres the other day. I'm just wrapping them up now for storage. I need them for the diameter and physical size. But these are the back ones. They're pretty aggressive. They are a 245 4015 AR1 Nankang. They're pretty chunky. They don't really look like much until you put them under a Corolla. And then you realise they're going to sit about that far out the guards and up here somewhere. So it's going to be pretty spicy. So they're the tyres for the back, and I'm getting the same thing but a 225 4515 for the front, but I don't need those yet, so I haven't bought them. But I'm just wrapping them up, so I thought I'd show you before they are covered in cling wrap. Alright, so it's been a few weeks actually since I've done anything on the fuel cell hanger. So I welded the bottom section onto this crossbar here, got that clamped in place, and I've done the uprights and made some little legs that go out to the chassis, or what's left of it. So I got to this point, I made another brace to go up here, made the legs to drop down and hold everything nice and tight. And then I took some photos to my boss at the engineers, and he said, that's cool, great, whatever. You need to do a 4-link on your diff. Which was not what I wanted to hear, but it is the correct answer. So the problem with the diff is that when I have this at ride height, the tyre is going to be up here, which is pretty cool. I need 90 mil of clearance at ride height. So 90 mil from here is right up here, and then the tyres are going to be a couple of inches out of the guards. So the flares are going to be huge and really tall, and it's going to look kind of weird. So I'm still working on a solution for that. But the problem is, when this is at ride height, which is currently at full droop, with the leaf springs obviously, when this is at ride height, the diff tube is actually up here in the actual body, and then I need 90 mil of clearance from there, which actually puts it up like right up here where that line is, you can see, which is where everything attaches to the floor. And also if you look in here, this floor here, that's got to go for clearance, and leaf springs also aren't going to accept that much travel. So what I need to do is pretty much cut out all the floor, put a 4-link on this, get it right up in there, and then make clearance on the guards for the tyres, so the tyres have clearance when it's right up here. So this is setting the ride height at 100 mil at the sills, which is the legal in Australia. You can only be 100 mil from the ground, you can't go any closer. So at 100 mil, I need to have 90 mil of travel for the diff. So I need to be able to put this car 10 mil off the ground at the sills and still have clearance and it still roll. So you can imagine how much I'm going to have to cut out. So that's a bit of a spanner in the works, obviously. And to start fixing this, I need to fix the front. So I need to put the rad support back on, put the engine back in, put the gearbox back in, get everything mounted up, and then also get this diff, get the axles in the diff, get the wheels on, and get it in roughly the right spot. And then my boss is going to come around and he's going to look at the engine placement, work out if that's good or bad for the front end that they're making, and then also instruct me how to do the back bracing things before I cut stuff out, what I can cut out, what I can't cut out, and all that sort of stuff. So this is all going to be legal in South Australia, so it's very crucial to take the time and pay the attention that you need to pay to get everything nice and solid and legal. So this is going to go on ice for a while. I might be able to use it, I might not. We'll see. The diff I have to remake with 4-link brackets on it now, so what I did in the episode about the diff is kind of useless. 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, or something like that. 2 steps forwards and 3 steps backwards, who knows. We'll get there. Just got to take the time and do it properly the first time. So in saying that the diff is no good, I got another one from a guy at work. So this one is wider than what we had by about 70 mil, I believe, but it is complete. So it's got both drums, handbrake cables, leaf springs, which we're not going to use, and a diff center and a housing and axles and everything. So what I'm going to do with this is take the brakes off, take the center out, and then leave the housing and the axles and the leaf springs and everything, and then put all of that stuff onto my diff. And then when I go to do a 4-link, I'll probably cut this one down, make it all nice and square, put the 4-link brackets on this diff instead at the correct width, use my axles, and then I can sell my housing and go from there. So just another piece to the puzzle, I guess. Alright, so that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. We didn't quite get there with the fuel cell, but you have the idea of what I'm going to do, and once that 4-link starts happening, everything's cut out, I can remake it all and start again. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.